when you're able to connect with your own personal feelings to something that when you know, a writer wrote it. You didn't write unless you wrote it. So you have to make that real. And so the only way to do that is just think about real stuff that you've been through. And, you know, definitely right now, 2020, Stranger Things, I'm using I'm using
some
that,
Stranger
bro.
Things.
It's on. It's on. So yeah, it's interesting. Uh because I have a lot of you know, he's a lieutenant colonel, so there's real folks in the military. You know, you call them pals, and you know, I can go all the way back to somebody that I don't want to say the name of it wrong, but I saw an interview of a gentleman that was in the tank regiment. I don't know if the one thing at this interview today, and Miles is buzzing me like, Sherman, did you see?
My
Okay,
mom.
you know. So she's like, why didn't you pick up? I had that interview. Oh, I forgot. How'd it go? So I don't want to digress, but you know, I look at those interviews of these real men and the historic nature that they put on this planet, if we know about it or not. The Harlem Hellcats, all those things. You know, you do your research. So there's a lot of real cats that I'm using, and just by coincidence, I can say this: we're on the same page. I never had a chance to have a conversation with the brothers until after I shot my first scene. And from the audition tape, basically, when I read the material, I knew exactly who that guy was. And he's, I don't want to spoil it, but it's been a long, long time since I got a chance to go, you know, a little dark. A little
Well,
dark.
let's talk about that. So, like,
Yeah.
you've had a very, 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 very long career. I mean, your first
Thank God.
big break was
Thank you,
famous
Jesus.
1998 Colors with
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
and
Stop.
and
Okay, we're good. No, a lot of us got hired off of that. I mean, a lot of us got hired. That was
okay.
our first jobs. You know, Don Cheadle's first job, Glenn Plummer's first job. It was a lot of our first jobs. And, you know, thank you, Dennis Hopper. You know, and there's a story in that, but I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
And for you, okay, so starting off on that, and then, you know, jumping, obviously for those that are old enough to remember, which for
Yeah.
me, it was an inspiration because this was a brother's role that I was chasing, and for a long time, and I took a lot of, to be honest with you, a lot of your mannerisms and skill sets that I saw as a performer into my own. And as you said, like every actor, every black actor, you feel like you can take pieces.
Yeah,
From them and
yeah,
then try
yeah.
to
If you want to know the game properly, you watch what people are doing and you adapt
exactly,
it, but you got to make it your own. You know?
exactly. And
Yeah.
for me, when you came on as the dashing Detective Weber
Right.
on The Young and the Restless, I mean, they had a lot of other actors, black detectives, cops, come in there and try to do, you know, the role justice as a detective.
Yeah.
And it's been 20 years.
I tell you, this is what happened. All right. So as my career, my trajectory, I can speak,
Sure.
started started climbing, and I started getting interesting roles, and I started finding out in exactly who I was and what I wanted to attack, and what I strategically did one thing. I always went after the thing that I was weak at, always,
Okay.
and you know, and get good at that, and keep moving and keep moving. So I remember I went in and read for Marnie another role like 2 years earlier, and I had like a couple of big movies coming out or whatever, and I didn't get that gig. So I was like, okay, well that wasn't me because it just would have been a gig. So Michelle Stafford, I was at her house. She had a party
Love
one night.
Michelle.
Yeah, that's hey. So I was at her house, and it was myself, Shamar, and who else was there? It was a couple of more people, and we were just hanging out. She said, "Sherm, you know, there's this role." I'm like, "Look, I've auditioned for them. a couple of times, and I'm not going to audition anymore. So we'll do this. Why don't I find out who is casting, and I'll send my reel. And so that's what happened. And then I got a phone call. Okay, they're interested. So cool. So, went into the whole thing. But emotionally and where I was at this place in my career where I wanted to start playing more authoritative roles, but, mix it up a little bit. Um, some of the things like that I can adapt, knowing family members who were detectives and cops and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to pay them homage and just make it as real as possible and live in the moment and just make every moment cinematic. You know what I mean? Because soaps are hard, man.
And that's what I felt the way you played it, because like I
Yeah,
said, to this day, they've had actors come in, play
yeah,
that role, but no one has been able to me. I mean, for starters, I will give you credit even more than, and I have my buddy Doug Davison coming up in January.
right. Doug's the man.
Yeah. Even to this day, he still hasn't solved the damn case. You have locked up more people.
That's the writers, man. That's not Doug's fault. That's the
You have
writers.
locked
So
up more
let's call it the
people,
way
and
it
I'm
is.
like, this guy, number one, like when you knew when you walked into a room, somebody was getting arrested.
Well, I always like to play those guys.
I remember the infamous scene
Right.
with my buddy Greg Ricard, and it was after he had a fight, I think, with JT.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, you know what? I said, like, this guy, if he wasn't an actor, he would be the most believable cop. Like, for real.
It's playing chess, man. Basically it's playing chess. I try to put myself in a situation where we're going to play some tennis, right? Two actors playing tennis. But then I start getting into the whole thing. How would that behavior really be? So if you do your due diligence and you do have time to go watch somebody interrogate, I was fortunate to go watch. I watched my cousin interrogate this dude, this Russian gangster once. That I don't want to get started, but anyway, it's a couple of things that I was able to watch and do a couple of ride-alongs. Back in the day, you can do that. I don't know what they're doing now. I mean, you can go in and get really good intel and sit down with folks and maybe do a ride-along to something. But I remember always saying to myself, make this as real as possible. First of all, listen so I can react properly, and make this as cinematic as possible. We're not doing a soap. We're shooting a film. We're shooting where everybody's gone, and me and whoever's in the scene with me, we are shooting this film. We're making it as cinematic as possible, and you have to look at it that way. No matter what it is, just put yourself in that spot and try to make, or not try to make, but make that a real moment, a real conversation. Just
So
like what happened now.
do you feel for yourself, number one, like your experience with colors?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you brought that element?
Oh, I was so green. I was like petrified, dude. I got to tell you, I was petrified because you're working with Sean Penn and Robert Duvall. Come on, you're walking around with them. You're driving cars and stuff. And I remember one line I had. I was just like, oh man, the helicopter was going, and they were shooting that, and Dennis was there, and I was just like, and Robert said his line, and I was a deer in the headlights, and I kind of looked over at Dennis, and he said, go ahead, take your time, say the dialogue. And I said the dialogue, and he went, cut. And I was like, oh, dude, okay. So that was my very first experience on a big film like that, and working with those kind of people, and I cut my teeth there. But one thing I did do, I watched Don and Glenn and Leon and Bruce. I watched all those guys do their thing, and certainly you learned something from there, because it was just so natural for them, because that's what they did at Cal Arts. They went to Cal Arts. I went to Northwestern and was running up and down the football field. This was all late to me. So then I started applying exactly the work ethic that I had as a football player. You know, stay after practice a little longer, work on your feet work, you know, work on your drills, you know, work on some tip drills if somebody's out there with you. And it's the same thing with dialogue. You know, run it until you own it. And Pam Grier said that to me one time. She said, run it until you own it. And I always keep that in the back of my mind. And I remember I was doing Touch by an Angel, and it was myself. Well, Cicely Tyson played my mom, and Janelle Kennedy played my wife. And so
Okay.
we didn't know who was playing my mom until Cicely walked on stage, and it was like, oh man, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those basketball diary moments where Leo was just so good, and you look at everybody and go, you want to be an actor? You know, how are you going to follow that? So I remember one day, just like with soaps, just like with Young and the Restless, somebody forgets to give somebody something so they can give you the new pages.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen actors on soaps have meltdowns because they were supposed to get those 15 pages last night, and they're getting them today. It happened to me twice. Keep your composure, ask for some time, go do it. And the reason why I learned that is Cicely Tyson had this whole one-page monologue, and she didn't get the pages, right, or the page. So
Okay.
she said, okay, all right, give me an hour, give me 2 hours. So we shot around it, but we only shot 30 minutes of that. And she came back with that monologue, handwritten, and slayed it. And I think who was directing that? I forgot who was directing. It'll come to me in a minute. But he went on to do a lot of the produce a lot of the Sopranos.
Okay.
And I just remember turning to Janelle and going, "Wow, we want to be actors. How do you do that? How do you do that right there? How do you go away for 30 minutes and come back with it handwritten in the most beautiful cursive writing, and you know it already?
Mm-hmm.
Who does that? So you got to step up your game again." And it was just